This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg TV and radio. Reactions from some of Donald Trump's allies and former allies have not been favorable to the former president after his abortion announcement earlier today, in which he said the power to decide abortion policy should reside with the states. His former vice president saying, quote, President Trump's retreat on the right to life is a slap in the face to the millions of pro-life Americans who voted for him in 2016 and 2020. Joining us now for more is Cliff Young, Ipsos U.S. Public Affairs President. So, Cliff, as Mike Pence talks about, the voters who were behind Trump in 2016 and 2020 who may not like the fact that he did not support any kind of weak term in terms of a federal abortion ban. How should we think around American attitudes on this issue? Is it actually likely that more people would like what the former president had to say this morning than those who will be unhappy with it?
I think the former president is crazy like a fox. He knows that abortion is a losing issue. If you look at the polling globally, that is across the United States, you look at it in the states, there's widespread sort of discontent with the actual position today. Only 40% of people support abortion at 16 weeks, even less so at 5 weeks. And so America is not where the GOP is today. And I believe the former president, Trump, understands that.
Why go near it if you stand to lose evangelicals, which are part of the real Trump base? That's supposed to be a voting group that he can count on here. And he now threatens to lose some of these voters, maybe not to Joe Biden, but they might not show up at all if they don't think Donald Trump is convincingly on their side. He had a win with evangelicals on this issue. Could he stand to lose it?
Well, I think the calculus is they're going to stay with me no matter what. Mm-hmm. And where I'm really hurting is with suburban women, moderate Republicans. Indeed, that's the profile of voter that's supporting RFK right now, as an example. They're orphans right now. And so I think the calculus is, what can I do to bring them back into the fold? Because I need them come Election Day.
Well, we know that the Biden campaign has really made one of its focal talking points, if you will, around the abortion issue, or reproductive rights, as it seems they're trying to frame it now. The other big contrast, though, they're trying to draw with former President Trump is on the issue of democracy. And we've been asking this question repeatedly about whether or not that's really something that resonates if a lot of voters are more concerned with what's happening at the border. But your polling actually suggests that essentially political extremism and the fate of democracy are the #1 issue.
Yeah, by the way, that surprised us.
Yeah,
and actually it wasn't in our battery of polling, historically speaking. But what we thought was important is try to capture what the Democrats and Biden were doing. They're really hammering home, doubling down on that message. And what do we find? The economy is no longer the #1 issue. It is saving democracy. And it's an issue that resonates not just with Democrats, but independents as well. That's good for Biden. One last point. What do we know based upon lots of elections, lots of data out there? The candidate strongest on the main issue, right now saving democracy, wins the election 85% of the time. Now, obviously, we have a long road to go. We'll see what happens by Election Day, but that's a good thing for Biden.
Well, is this a Democratic issue? A lot of Republicans answer polls by saying that Joe Biden is a threat to democracy, and a lot of the talking points we hear, for instance, lawmakers on Capitol Hill tell us that on a regular basis.
Yeah, it's framed slightly differently. It's about a broken system and having a strong leader to take back a broken system. So it's two sides of the same coin, framed slightly differently.
Weaponization of government.
Weaponization of democracy in general. On both sides, they see the other side doing that. Both sides think the other side is politically motivated when they do things. Trump's legal troubles, for instance, are seen as nothing more than politically motivated chaos, let's say, or an attack. But yes, we're in a strange time right now where democracy itself is a campaign theme.
Well, so you described this as something that is working in the incumbent president's favor. There's a lot of things that aren't working in his favor, though, including Israel. We were just talking about how young voters and Arab and Muslim Americans have shown this in protest votes in the primary, not satisfied with the president's policy when it comes to Gaza. How problematic will that be for him? Is this something that voters ultimately will vote on in the general election, not just in protest in the primaries?
Yeah, it's an Achilles heel for Biden, and it should be something they worry about, the campaign campaign and Biden worries about. Now, I do think that inflation trumps that, and so when you look at the two issues among younger Americans especially, it's really inflation that's driving the problem with Biden's numbers, not the issue in Israel. That's not to say it's not important. I think they'll shore that up. Obviously, they're trying to change the scenario in the region to help them by Election Day. But I think those are individuals that typically vote, constituencies that typically vote Democratic. I think they'll be brought into the fold by Election Day.
How do you qualify what we heard from the president today? He's coming back around on student loan debt forgiveness. You could call that an economic issue, a personal finance issue. Maybe that's a big brother issue. Where does that fall in the questioning as you talk to voters, realizing that this may never see the light of day when it comes to appealing to young voters who would otherwise stay home if they didn't have something like that they could wrap their arms around?
It's targeted at the same group that criticizes him for Israel. Right? Younger Americans.
Sure.
He's had a problem, as I've already said, because of inflation, also because of Gaza/Israel. And this is, in my mind, as I see it, this is basically a strategy of his to bring this subgroup, this constituency back into the fold.
Do they cancel each other out?
I don't know. Perhaps, perhaps. But ultimately, it's a big deal to have your student, debt sort of forgiven. So.
Well, obviously, Cliff, we talk primarily about Trump versus Biden, Republican versus the Democrat, but there are third-party factors here included and inclusive in your polling. I noticed when you add RFK into the mix, he gets 16% of the vote. Trump gets 32, Biden gets 31. They're essentially almost even. So how should we be thinking about him as a factor?
Once again, disaffected Americans, ambivalent Americans, they don't like either option, but supporters of RFK tend to be right of center, more female, more suburban, maybe sort of Dobbs orphans. Once again, going back to our conversation about abortion, this is a place ripe for Biden to take advantage, and it's a problem for Trump.
So pulling votes from Trump.
Polling votes for Trump.
He got 16%. Ross Perot got 19%. That's where we are here.
Yeah,
that's a significant impact.
That is. It just suggests, that we're in a complicated place today.
Yes.
We have a lot of ambivalence about the choices that are there on the table, right?
Fascinating.
Our experience, though, is that over time it tapers off. Maybe this will be halved by Election Day. Right. Sometimes you overstate at the beginning and you start thinking about, the value of your vote. Maybe you don't want to feel like you threw your vote away. So I expect this to change by Election Day.
We expect to see you before then.
Okay, that's
Many
great.
times,
Cliff
I'm
Young,
sure.
thank you, as always.